We're meant to connect, to help one another. And when we lean into the imperfection, into our vulnerabilities, we give others the permission to do the same and to know, I believe, the most powerful words the human spirit can hear and understand is you are not alone.
Okay, friends, soul friends around the globe. I'm already smiling so big, my ear. This is how I know when my cheeks are hurting and we haven't even begun yet. You, Renee Marino, what a gift. I'm so excited that today's the day that we get to chat and for you to be on the You-est podcast. Welcome, my dear friend.
Oh, I'm so happy. I feel the same. I have chill bumps all over. I'm so giddy right now and excited. And it's funny you say that like that's how you know it's right. I know the people that are meant to be in my life because this is how I feel when I'm with them or when I speak to them. Like I just feel lit up from the inside out. I feel like my battery's recharged, and that's how I feel right now. I'm like, I'm like buzzing.
We are buzzing. And for all of our friends around, soul friends around the world, we are sending you love and light and hope that you're going to buzz with us because
Yes.
we are going to have such a powerful conversation. I already know this. And I'm just excited. You literally are a master communicator for real. And so I've asked Renee, maybe she'll sing something throughout. You just feel free anytime you want to sing anything that you want to say. You have free, you can do that anytime.
Oh, thank you.
You literally wrote the book on how to be on becoming a masterful communicator, and you are this from your work on Broadway, being in the movie Jersey Boys. How was that, by the way, to play Mary? It's Mary Delgado, right? That's the part with Clint Eastwood. Like, what was that like?
It was beyond what I ever dreamed. You know, I say in the book, I say sometimes what we dream doesn't hold a candle to what we achieve. And that's how I felt with the movie. You know, since I was a little girl, I dreamt of being on Broadway. I always was a singer, a dancer, an actress, and like Broadway was my goal. And I achieved that through so much hard work, so much rejection. I mean, we can go into that.
Mm.
And then doing the movie, like, I almost feel like it wasn't even on my radar. And Julie, what's so great is I have to tell you this story because the way that everything happened full circle is mind-blowing. So the story of me getting this role is so important, and I think it'll be so important to all of you beautiful listeners because it's such a testament to the power of communication. So in 2013, I was playing the role of Frankie Valli's wife, as Julie said, Mary Delgado, in the Broadway musical. And like, I was living my dream. I'm a true Jersey girl from Linden, New Jersey, playing this role of like this woman who was a real actual woman in life. I mean, Frankie Valli's first wife. And it was a dream come true. I lived down the street from where the theater was, and my family could come in from New Jersey to see me. So I was just, living my best life. And I'm on stage one day, Sunday matinee, and the girls and I are singing, "My boyfriend's back and you're gonna be in trouble. Hey la, my boyfriend's back." And I look out into the audience, and who's staring at me but the legend himself, Clint Eastwood. And I was like, "Oh." And at that point, I was like, "Oh, this is cool." Like, we always on Broadway, you have celebrities who come see the show and thought leaders and incredible people. But we got word that Clint Eastwood was going to be directing the film version of Jersey Boys. And at this point, Julie, I didn't even think twice about it because I go, they're going to hire A-list celebrities out of Los Angeles. Marissa Tomei is going to play my role. So didn't think much of it. And then they started calling people in from our cast to audition. And they were looking for someone to play my role of Mary Delgado. So at this point, I was like, you know what? It would just be so cool to get a chance to audition. So I call my agent and I'm like, "Listen, let's see if we can get me an audition for Mary." A few weeks go by. Every girl I know on Broadway is getting an audition for Mary Delgado. And my agent calls me and she says, "Renee, I'm so sorry. I don't know what the problem is, but they said they won't give you an audition for Mary Delgado, but they'll give you one for one of the smaller roles, one of the angels who sings My Boyfriend's Back." And I hung up the phone, Julie, and I was so disappointed and so confused because I'm like, wait, I'm playing this role at the highest level I could be on Broadway, and that doesn't even warrant an audition. And like many of you, it's made me question myself and question God. And I'm like, God, are you trying to tell me like I shouldn't be in this business anymore? Because something's wrong here. And after a little while, I felt my feelings. I cried it out. I communicated with myself, as I call it. And then I threw my hands up and I said, what am I going to do? I'm still going to go in and audition for one of the angels. And the day of the audition, the casting director says to me, Renee, would you like to sing My Boyfriend's Back first or read the scene? And at that moment, I heard this quiet little voice within say, you have to do this. It feels too right. And I looked at the casting director in the eyes and I said, Jeff, I was really hoping to come in and read for the role of Mary Delgado. And I had no idea what he was going to say. And he looks back at me and he goes, I was just thinking the same thing. I'm like, amazing. Okay, great. So I do the Mary audition that day and I leave there feeling so happy and grateful because I got the chance. That's all I wanted, was to know that whenever this movie came out, I knew that I gave it my all and I got the chance to audition. So weeks go by. I go back to 8 shows a week on Broadway. My agent calls me one day, and this time she says, you're Mary Delgado in the movie. Clint Eastwood loves you. And I'm like, what? Like, it was so surreal. I had never been on a TV set, a film set before. This was like incredible. So fast forward to my first day of filming. Again, it was like jumping off of a cliff. Like I'm in the shuttle, about to film my first scene, never did a movie or TV show before. And again, that little voice within was like, Renee, you know what you're doing. Clint Eastwood hired you, trust in your talent and leap. And I walked through the doors of that first day of filming and everyone's like, Renee, welcome. And then the legend himself comes up to me, Clint, and he's like, I went around to all the different casts, but nobody was in your class. And then you came in and put yourself on tape and it was the icing on the cake. And I'm like, what? Like, I'm like holding back the tears, right? So that day and every day that followed after we were finished shooting for the day, I would sit with Clint Eastwood, ask him every question I could, and then listen in a complete way. Because just like many of you, I'm a sponge and I like to use every opportunity I can to learn and to grow. And about a month into the film, I'm sitting with Clint and one of the producers, again, eating lunch, because eating's my favorite thing to do. And they're talking about how Clint knew he wanted me for the role of Mary when he saw me on Broadway. And I put my fork down and I said, wait, do it. Do you guys want to hear a funny story? I never got an audition for Mary Delgado. The only reason I got to read the scenes is because I opened up my big mouth in the room and asked. And the two of them looked at each other. They said, wait, what do you mean? We requested you. We said, we want the girl from the Broadway show to come into this audition. And I found out that day that there was a middle person, casting associate, juggling a few films at once and just dropped the ball on having me come into audition. In other words, Julie, if I did not have the ability to speak up and communicate my desire in that room that day, I could have missed my once in a lifetime opportunity. I could have been sitting in the movie theaters watching Jersey Boys instead of on the screen in Jersey Boys, never knowing that Clint Eastwood was waiting for me to walk through that door. And I just love this story so much because how often do we hold ourselves back from incredible opportunities, incredible conversations, incredible connections because we're afraid to speak up and to communicate.
Woo, that is a powerhouse story, my dear friend Renee. Oh my God, I didn't know this story. And something that's also kind of like hidden in there that I want to talk about this more, because I think for many of us, especially us women, I know for some men too, but for many of us women, we weren't taught to speak up. We were conditioned to be nice, to not, that it's bossy, that it's rude, whatever it is. And I got chills as you were telling this story, but especially you said one thing that we talk a lot about here, which is you listen to your inner voice, your intuition, your gut, your intuition said, this is your chance. You need to say something. And that is so powerful. This is really, I'm like, whew, we need to like take a moment, take this in, because how many of you watching have not said something or overrode your intuition and missed an opportunity? And it probably will look different for all of us. But I can tell you that that is incredible. And now I'm like, okay, what did you learn from Clint Eastwood? Because he's a legend. He's a wise one. I can tell. He's got a lot of wisdom in him.
Oh God, Julie, I probably should write another book on just what I learned from him. And
Yeah.
the most impressive thing about Mr. Clint Eastwood is not his directing ability, his acting ability, his all of his incredible skill sets. It's his genuine nature. I mean,
Mm.
I say this all the time, but nothing impresses me more in life than truly genuine people, and he is the best of the best. I mean, I would, when I say pick his brain, I would ask him everything. Clint, why did you start acting? Clint, where did you come from? Clint, what was your first agent like? Clint, like, I learned so much from him. And one of the best, you're going to love this, Julie, and everyone listening, you're going to love this. So if you haven't seen the Jersey Boys film, you need to see it. But there's a big scene with Mary and Frankie when they break up. And one day we're filming the scene. So like this is one of my biggest scenes in the film. And Frankie comes home from months and months of touring. I'm drunk and pissed off because I'm like over it. I'm like, I'm taking care of the kids. Put all my dreams aside so you can live yours. Meanwhile, you're out there doing God knows what. So the scene you'll see, I'm walking up the stairs and Frankie's following me and we start arguing. So we do the scene once and then he yells cut and he's like, all right, now I want you to really give it to him. And I'm like, okay. So I get in character, right? We start the scene again, and I'm like, you show up for a couple of days and you think that makes you a father. And all of a sudden, Julie, I forget my lines and I just start screaming. Like they just poof out of my brain. A few seconds later, I picked it back up. I remembered the lines. We finished the scene. He yells cut and he goes, that was it. And I go, Clint, I forgot all my lines. He goes, I don't care. It was real and it was raw, and that's good. When I was filming with Meryl, and in my head, I'm like, oh my God, he's talking to me about Meryl Streep, right? He's like, when I filmed with Meryl, she wanted to do 1,000,000 takes of her scenes until they were perfect. Until one day I filmed her rehearsal take and she saw how organic it was. She never did 1,000,000 takes again. And in that moment, a light bulb went off and I understood the beauty of imperfection. Because just like many of you, I'm sure, I lived my life as a perfectionist, being a performer, right? Beating myself up if I made a mistake, just like judging myself and believing that the only way to get better was to just bury myself. And in that moment, I realized, I go, oh my gosh, if you think about it, when you're really pissed off and arguing with someone, sometimes you forget what you're going to say. And that's real and that's beautiful. And human beings by nature are imperfect, right? So when we lean into that imperfection, when we are honest about our vulnerabilities, that's what connects us with people the most. And for me, that set off a trajectory of just a huge shift. I now like to say I'm a reformed perfectionist. That was one of the many, many beautiful lessons that I learned. And again, what I love most about it doesn't even have to do with acting. Like, yeah, it has this much to do with acting, but it's like a life core lesson that I learned from him through that experience.
That is so powerful. And I really feel like this is the core. We were talking about this before we even started. It was so funny because I was like, we should actually record because I could talk to you for hours, which we have and do. And I'm like, I guess we should record because one of the right, one of the things we were talking about was, this idea of taking imperfect action, of going for it. you were talking about your dream, and sometimes the outcome's even better than what you had imagined. And that, that we can get trapped and stuck when we think it has to be a certain way. We have to look a certain way. We have to sound a certain way. And I love all of this so much, Renee. This is so helpful because it's real life experience. And it's like, actually the shot that was kept in that film was the real raw you that connected to how she really would have felt, not what you had to say. And I'm just thinking, like, how many times do we do that in life? Like, and I can see this with social media. I can see this with our friends who are like us in the entrepreneurial world. Like, I have to look a certain way or say certain things or have it be all put together. And it's like, no, you don't. Actually, don't. Because as Clint said, that's the real raw. We're sticking with that.
Yes. And it is. It's so, social media is such a gift, right? But it's also so dangerous. And I always think of like my nieces and nephews, right? Who are young. I mean, 7, 10, 13. And I think about this comparison culture, right? Because we all do it. I do it. This is what my whole TED talk was about. So I did a TED talk called "Happiness is not where you're looking," and it's all about how we look outside of ourselves, right? For that fulfillment, for that happiness. And especially with social media, we look at the highlight reels, right? Everyone's best photos, their best videos, and we think, oh my gosh, like I could never do a video that looks that great, or like my skin never looks that perfect. But what I realize in my own experience, when I am imperfect and I just do the damn video and press send before I even think about it, those are the ones that get the most likes, the most comments. It's never when I've taken 45 hours to do a million takes because a hair was out of place and then I post it and nothing happens. There's something, we're mostly energy, whether we want to believe it or not. We are majority energy more than matter. And when we give off that energy of just acceptance, of showing who we really are, people feel that. And no matter how much we look to others and we say like, oh, but they're so perfect, what we really love, and I'll just speak for myself, I love when that person that I admire and I always thought was perfect all of a sudden breaks down as like, I just want you to know that I have been dealing with depression and anxiety for 20 years and I've never talked about it until now. All of a sudden it's like, oh my God, I'm not alone. I'm not alone in my struggles. And as human beings, that's what we're meant to do. We're meant to connect, to help one another. And when we lean into the imperfection, into our vulnerabilities, we give others the permission to do the same and to know, I believe the most powerful words the human spirit can hear and understand is you are not alone. And when I see that in those I admire, I'm like, wow, okay, I'm okay. I'm doing all right. Even though I have some days where I'm struggling and I'm crying and I'm upset and I'm anxious, I'm okay. I can move through this.
We are so synced because I literally, as you said, the energy, I was like thinking literally what you said almost verbatim. And I'm like, wow, isn't this amazing? Even the frequency, right? Our energy has frequencies to it. And I just love what you are saying, Renee. And I think the underlying piece that you pointed to is this: we're not alone. And it actually made me think of the spiritual, the 4 words: I am. Well, it's I am that I am. I am that, right? That 3 letters, 5 letters, whatever it is. It's close to the 4. But they're like, I am that. We are that. We are connected to source. We are that creative life force energy. This story of yours, I think it really, really illustrates. I just keep coming back because it's so powerful. Like, you could have missed it. You could have missed it if you had not spoken up. And I'm so curious because I have to ask this. I want to come back to this. So I did a stand-in. I used to do acting very small on the side, and I was a stand-in with Paul Rudd. Okay. And I spent the day. It was so fun. Catherine Hahn, Paul Rudd, Reese Witherspoon. However, it was one day.
Oh
So
my God.
fun.
Wait, were you Catherine Hahn stand-in?
Yes, I was Catherine Hahn stand-in. Yes. I was like, what the heck is going on? She is so funny. Paul Rudd was so nice.
No,
Yeah.
Julie, wait. You're like one of my favorites, and she's my favorite. Like, my husband and I love her. Like,
I
I
love her.
And as you just said that and you mentioned her name, I'm like, oh my God, your energy reminds me of her. Like,
Oh
oh,
my gosh.
oh, that's amazing. Continue.
All right. I've never actually, there's so many of these things I've never talked about. It's so funny because I'm like, oh, we're still recording. So that's okay. But I'm laughing. But she's awesome and so kind. Her and Paul Rudd were so friendly, so kind. It was only a day and a half, but it was, so I was going to ask you really quick, just curious, because I'm sure there are other inquiring minds. It was a long ass day. This one tiny little 5 minute, I was like, good Lord, I had no idea, no idea. And maybe someday I'll be in more, I don't know. But that one experience gave me just a little peephole into what it's like. So for you, how long was the filming? Like, what was that like for your energy, for your
Yeah.
just maintaining being in character? Like, I am curious, how was that for you? It's so different than Broadway, where,
Oh my gosh. Okay.
yeah.
This is funny. I'm glad you said stand-in because I have a hilarious stand-in story. I talk about this in the book.
Okay.
So, like, again, I remind you all, like, I need everyone to really understand this. Like, I'd never done like TV or film, and I was starting at the top, like,
Right.
literally getting directed by like Oscar award-winning actor, director, right? I'm at like working with the best team in the world, Warner Brothers. Like, this is crazy, right? Like, going from like Broadway to a completely different realm and starting at the top. So, like, talk about it can be intimidating. So, my first day of filming, okay? We're filming the first scene where Frankie and Mary meet. Again, now you have to go watch the film if you haven't seen it. And like, I'm leaning on the bar, right? And Frankie and I catch eyes. He's singing. Well, after we filmed like the first moment, we probably only were working for like, oh gosh, like less than an hour, not even, maybe 30 minutes. And there was a break. And then we got a break. Now, let me pause and say, I'm used to Broadway, okay? And Broadway, when you're teching a show, that means like you're starting to work with the lights and the costumes. I could be on my feet, like in my heels, for 8, 9 hours at a time. So I'm used to like my work ethic is like second to none just because I've been shaped in that way with theater. Theater, the show must go on. There's no extra takes. It's like you do it no matter what. So I'm used to that sort of work ethic. And after like 40 minutes, that we had a break. And I'm thinking to myself, like, oh, I don't need a break. Like, I'm good. And all of a sudden, this girl walks in and she kind of like stands in my spot. And I realized, I said, oh, she's like standing in for me. They're doing like a lighting cue. And in my mind, again, I know nothing about like film. In my head, I'm thinking, oh my God, this girl's probably like, this girl's lazy. Like, she can't even stand here for a minute. So I feel bad. I walk up to her, I go, excuse me, like, I could stand here and do this because in my mind, I'm like, she's thinking, oh my gosh, what a diva. Meanwhile, she's my stand in. That's her job. So the assistant director, Bernie, he's like, Renee, don't worry about it. Go take your break. And I realized, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's why she gave me a weird look. Cause like when I said that, she was kind of like, step away. Like, this is my job. No clue, Julie, because I didn't know that's what a stand in did.
That is so awesome. This is so, I mean, I'm now, that's hilarious, right? These stand-ins are a real thing. So any of the main actors, actresses, they hire stand-ins so they can do all the lighting and stuff. So you can just come in and
Yes.
be there. That is so
Yes, and
funny. Oh, that's hysterical.
they also the stand-ins they hire, like, they're very similar stature. Like, the
Yeah.
girl kind of looked just like me, same height, same hair color, everything. And I'm thinking to myself, she's probably saying to herself, I can't believe this actress is so lazy. And in my mind, I'm like, I'm not even tired. I didn't do much yet. And I'm like, excuse me, I thanked her. I go, thank you so much. Like, wholeheartedly. And then the director was like, no, Renee, go take your break. And I'm like, oh.
That's awesome. That is such a good story. You have just such an authenticity to you, and that is adorable. That is so funny. I do remember it was actually like kind of fun, and all the stand-ins kind of look like the people. So I was standing in with Paul Rudd's look like it just was fun. So I could imagine she looked like you, and she think that's her job. She gets actually hired, paid. That's what she's there to do. That is great. Oh my God, I love that story. How long did it take to film Jersey Boys? How long from start to finish?
So my filming was first 3 weeks I was out there, then
Okay.
came back, and then I was out there for a month.
Okay. Oh,
The like Four Seasons, who the movie's majority about, I would say it wasn't very long, to be honest. I would say maybe 3 months.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't too long because it all happened very fast. I filmed that at the end of 2013, and then the film came out in June of 2014.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember when it came out. That what a great story. That is so funny about the stand-in.
Yeah.
I love it. I can totally see it. Like, I didn't know.
I'm like, why is she looking at me weird? Again, right? Wait, this is what makes me laugh. We all have that
Yeah.
voice in our head. Of
Yeah.
course, it's like Renee. She's looking at you because she thinks you're lazy. Meanwhile, she's
Sure.
really looking at me because she's like, excuse me, ma'am, can you move aside? I'm trying to get paid to do my job.
I was hired because we look alike and I do this. That is awesome. Oh, so good. So good. What a great opportunity. Like and I know for you, you did Broadway hours and hours and hours. I mean, you said 8 shows a week. So what was it like to I know you made the transition from Broadway, you did the film, you decided not to do Broadway because you needed a shift. Can you share a little bit about the kind of what that was like for you to make that decision?
Yeah. So in 2019, so after I did the film, we lived in LA for like 3.5 years. I did a TV show. I did a couple commercials, like wrote my one woman show and performed it out there. Like, it was an amazing time. But then my husband and I were ready to buy our own home, and we're from New Jersey, and we bought a house back in New Jersey. And I was like, I miss like the community of Broadway. So I came back, and this is something else funny, which I'm really proud of. Like, I came back to New York. So I had no agent, my agent and I from LA parted ways. And it was as if like I started all over. I had no agent, and I like auditioned as if like I just started out in the business again. And a lot of people are like, I give you a lot of credit for that. And I'm like, see, for me, there's no ego, like I just always look to myself as like a student of life, hard worker. And it's like, what's there to have ego about, right? We're all human beings. And like, for me, I'm like, all right, now I'm back in the world of theater. Like, I got to start again. And I booked Pretty Woman, the musical, which was coming to Broadway, which was amazing, like one of my favorite movies. And during that time, Julie, I knew I had always wanted to write a book, and I've always written. Like, writing is definitely one of my greatest loves. I write personalized children's books for my nieces and my nephews, but I always wanted to write like a real deal book and have it be published and out in the world. And I knew that I wanted that book to be about communication. I've always been obsessed with communication, and communication is very broad. So I didn't know what part of communication, but it was 2018, 19, and I started seeing this need for help in the area of communication because everyone was attached to their smartphones and their computers. And I would have, conversations with my girlfriends in our dressing room, and we'd be talking about like, oh, so and so's dating someone new. And she's like, my one friend particularly, she's like, I really like him, but I don't know how he feels. And I asked a question that I assumed was like a very simple answer, and I'm like, well, have you talked about it? Thinking like, of course. And she's like, oh, no, 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 like, I don't want to rock the boat. And I was like, boom. Oh, why do we do this to ourselves, right? We don't speak up, we assume, we fall into problems. And then I was out to dinner one night with a girlfriend at a restaurant. We're catching up. Next thing I know, a family of 5 sits next to us, a mom and dad, teenage son, and 2 young kids, like under the age of 6. And the entire meal, Julie, none of them spoke because they all had their heads down in a digital device. And my heart sank because I thought to myself, this family's missing out on these beautiful moments of connection to be tied to their smartphones and their computers. And that's when the light bulb went off, and I said, this is what I need to shine a light on. Like, how do we balance these worlds of what I call new school technology with that old school simplicity, right? That old school way of communicating face to face, or writing a handwritten letter, or picking up the phone. So as I was doing my Broadway show, 8 shows a week, I was also the dance captain and assistant to the choreographer. So like, I had a very big job. When I got off stage, the amazing crew guys would let me use their office, and I would write. So when the show closed, again, that little voice within me was like, Renee, you're ready to activate your other gifts of speaking, maybe coaching. I wanted to get my book published, and I decided to take a course. Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi, I was followers of them, and they had this course come out on how to start a business. So I decided to take the course. And let me pause and just say the reason I made that decision, Julie, like a lot of people are like, oh, you didn't want to perform anymore. I'm like, oh, no, absolutely. I will always be a performer. Like, I wasn't like, oh, I'm done with the business. Not at all. But I feel like the purpose of my life is to activate all of my God given gifts. And for me, like, I don't ever want to be at the end of my life and be like, darn it, I didn't use that gift that God gave me. Like, I feel like I have to use all of it. And that's what I started feeling, which is why I was like, okay, let's like start a new chapter for now, right? You want to get your book published. So I started taking their course, and a month later, the world shut down. It was COVID, and it was crazy divine timing because I wouldn't have been able to perform even if I wanted to. And I just immersed myself. The first thing I did was I created a course for business owners, entrepreneurs on how to get on camera and be themselves with confidence, because remember, everyone was virtual. And at the same time, I got my first book publishing deal, and it just started from there. And I started my own company, and it was crazy how like this new chapter just all of a sudden began.
I love so much of what you just shared. And I think something that's just sticking out to me, we talk here, the idea of even being your U.est you, right? I think there's this, for me, I keep every interview, it gets me closer to understanding it, right? And you just said something, I was like, that is it. It is experiencing and expressing all of your God-given gifts
Yes.
and allowing them to come through you. And that, for many of us, is not linear, and it's also not just one. I mean, think about how incredible our divine creator is, that it's not just one, it's many, many, many. So I love what you're saying. It's like opening to allowing all of the gifts to move through you and express through you, which, even that word expression, I know so much of what you teach and do, it is all about expression, whether it's singing, whether it's teaching, whether it's speaking, writing, it's expression, and it's using your gift of expression in these different ways. And it's so beautiful. I haven't heard it said that way. And I was like, that is one of the best ways to explain the whole point of why we're here on this planet. Like, and I know for you, I don't remember the year, but I remember you talking about there was a real moment of inflection. You shifted, the world shut down, you shifted to starting your own business. And I know there was a lot that also happened in your personal
Oh,
life that really had you kind of pivot or pause, I should say. Can you share what some of the lessons were that you went through with some of these
yes.
personal challenges and
Oh, yeah. And I
struggles?
think I'm so glad you asked that, because this is such an important part of my story, and goes back to what I shared before is like, I just shared with you all like these great things, right? Oh, my book got published. I started a new business. And some of you may be thinking, oh, that sounds so easy. Well, let me tell you, this is where the vulnerability comes in. At that same time, the end of 2019, after my show closed and I decided to activate my other gifts, my father had been dealing with cancer. He was doing great. And all of a sudden it took a turn. He died December 22nd of 2019. And my father was my best friend. I mean, the greatest man that I know besides my husband. But like me and him were like this. Uh a few weeks, no, I'd say, yeah, maybe 4 weeks or so. No, it had to be more than that. Like a month before this, he passed away. I found out I was pregnant. My husband and I were trying for the first time. And I remember getting the results of the pregnancy test and being like, whoa, God, what? This is some timing. Like, I'm pregnant for my first time. My father's not going to be here to be a grandfather. Like, it was really interesting, and I just kept saying to myself, okay, well, this is going to be the light at the end of the tunnel. So the whole time I was pregnant, I'm taking care of my father. I'm dealing with so many emotions and mixed feelings. and he died. And 3 days later, I went to my doctor and found out I miscarried. Um, and that just caused a series of health challenges with my thyroid. Uh, my heart was getting an extra heartbeat. So, in the midst of me deciding to start a new business, the world shutting down, my whole world got flipped upside down. Like, it literally was like all of a sudden, everything underneath me was shifting. My world as I knew it. My father was gone. I lost a child. My health now was taking a turn. I was no longer physically active, that physicality that I was used to, 8 shows a week, dancing, moving. Now I was stuck behind a computer. The world shut down, right? Everybody was in fear and panic, wearing masks. I mean, it was, Julie, there was so much. And in a lot of ways, I don't even know how I did that. Like, I look back now and I'm like, what? Like, did that really happen? And a lot of it only affected me years later. It's now like 4.5 years later. And Julie, I'll be honest, this past year in many ways was one of the hardest for me emotionally, just feeling so off. And I'm like, what's going on? And I realized, wow, my body probably settled to a point that was now ready to deal with all that I experienced. So again, I say this to impress upon you, when you look at someone, especially on social media, or even listen to them in an interview and you're just hearing an iota of what they go through, understand that there's probably a whole nother picture that you're not seeing. And for those of, the people, my followers who saw me just at that time in my life, oh, wow, look at Renee. She just started a new business like it was nothing. Well, they didn't see me crying in my room or feeling complete fear and panic that I was getting an extra heartbeat. I ended up getting a heart procedure called an ablation. Um, I mean, the anxiety, the sadness, the grief of losing my father, all of it, right? I wasn't showing that day in and day out. So just let this be a lesson for you to know that everyone's fighting a battle you know nothing about. Therefore be kind, right? Wendy Mass said that, and it's one of my favorite quotes. I have it in my book, and it's for that reason. It's so easy to look from the outside and be like, oh wow, look at Julie, like, God, she's just perfect. She's perfect skin, she's always happy. But we're human beings, right? We're all dealing with something. So thank you for asking that, because I want those who learn about me to understand that, like, I go through the stuff too. We all do. And the more honest we are in sharing that, the more we connect with each other, because then hopefully I give you the permission to take off your mask and your facade that just shows people what you think they want to see. And you're like, listen, actually, you just asked me how I'm feeling. I feel kind of shitty today. I feel shitty today, but I'll be okay. How about if we said that when people said, how are you? Instead of just being fine, good, cool. No, how about, I'm struggling a bit today, but I'll get through it. Like, I just feel like, what a more honest way to communicate than just being like, I'm good, I'm fine. Like, sometimes I hate that word fine because I just feel like it really serves as such a mask. And sometimes we are just fine, but I think it's important that we don't believe that that's all we can share.
Mm. Wow, sister. I first of all, my heart is with you, and it's so interesting. I want to give a shout out, by the way, to our mutual sister Ashley Bernardi,
Yes.
who connected us. I remember the moment I met you, I was like, "Who is this? And why do I feel like I've known you my whole life?" And one of the
Yeah.
things I was so captivated by was your deep authenticity and vulnerability. It was immediate. I could feel it. I was like, "Oh my God, this woman is just divinely so in your power and so real and so raw." And I love that about you. And I love what you're saying, Renee. There is I think this conditioned response. And I think it's for many of us, men and women, but I can only speak being female and knowing I'm fine. All is fine. Same with you. I'm always like, that word, it like unless it's being used in like the 60s to like, it's like, she's fine, he's fine. Like, they're hot, they're cute. Otherwise, I'm like, what does that even mean? I don't even like, how could you actually, as a multidimensional human being, be just fine? Like, my brain goes to, there's just no way. There's so much going on. My thing is actually like, how much time do you have? Do you really want to hear what's happening? And with
Yes.
you, I actually leave you voice memos. Like, here is what's happening.
Yes.
And here's what's going on.
And this
Yeah.
is why you and I are we're meant to be in each other's lives, because
Yeah.
that's me. And when you do it, like, I love it. I was just
Yeah.
saying to someone, or actually, no, I was voice memoing myself. I do this, you guys, just so you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
like when I have these ideas, I voice memo myself to remind myself. And I voice memo myself that the more I grow and the more years I live, I realize I really have no place for surface conversations beyond the first like 3 to 5 minutes. Like, after 3 to 5 minutes, if we are still talking about the weather and where we grew up, I'm kind of like, no. Like, I want to get to the nitty gritty. Like, talk to me about what your fears are. Like, what's going on? Like, what really like bursts your bubble when someone does it? Like, I just love those deep, real conversations. Those are the things that light me up. So when you send me voice memos like that, I'm like, yes, I hope it's 15 minutes. Like, I want to hear what's really going on, because I think as a society, we spend too much time on the shit that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Like, stuff that sometimes I hear these conversations, and I watch these shows, right? That we're all sitting on the couch watching, and I'm thinking to myself, like, what am I wasting my time on this for? Like, this is not furthering me or evolving me as a human being. And not that every piece of entertainment has to do that. Absolutely not. We need those things that just let us decompress, right? But I'm saying, like, when it comes down to the nitty gritty, like, I want to talk about what's real. I want to, I want to evolve. I want to grow. I want to be a student. And when we are just fine and we're just talking about the weather and we're just talking about how much money we made, like, I'm like, okay, that takes me so far. That takes me so far. And the people, my chosen family in my life, are those people that we just know, like, we get real. Like, there's no mask. Right away, it's like, what's going on? Like, my best friend, she's like my sister. Literally, we've been best friends since birth. She's my maid of honor. Like, we could not talk for months, and the minute we get on a call, we talked this weekend, and I just heard her voice. I was like, what's going on? She's like, I'm like, so go ahead, go into it. And like, here we go. She spills the beans, and she's like, sorry that, this wasn't such a positive conversation. I'm like, what do you mean? What does that mean? Like, this, I'm in it for this. This is what I want to hear.
I really believe what you were talking about earlier with being masterful communicating. So much of what we're talking about to me is the real, is the being connected. That means that we're out of our up and out of our phones. We're eye to eye, even if it's a message on a phone, leaving that message because you can hear the intonation. There's something about this human connection, which, Renee, I'm sure you've done this too, looked at it from so many different perspectives of like consciousness and spiritual evolution and, our ability to speak and express. We're so lucky that we can do that. I mean,
Yes.
so lucky. It's a gift. And to get to that, I've heard it's been said as the level 3 conversation. Level 1 is I'm fine. Level 2 is like a little bit more about your family and what's happening. Level 3 is like we're at the bottom of the pool. We're at the deep end.
Yes.
And I think that as a society, we're starving for that kind of communication. Yeah.
Amen, sister.
Yeah.
Yes.
Starving.
Starving for it, right?
Yeah.
Starving. Like, nothing lights me up more than when I see, and I said this before, when I go on social media or I listen to an interview on television and someone that I look up to, whether it's fitness perspective or personal development, and they're given some real talk. Like, I'll give you an example. Just the other day, so Dean Graziosi, incredible. He and Tony Robbins are partners. So Dean, I've been on his podcast. I was just out in Arizona with them, and he interviewed me live. So Dean is just amazing. He's been like a mentor. And I heard him every Monday. He goes live in his Facebook group for mastermind.com, their platform. And last Monday, I just happened to tune in, and he was just getting real. He was discussing about his children. Both of them have very serious food allergies. And Dean started talking about it and sharing with the thousands of people that were listening to him, like, I'm sure it's easy for you all to think like, oh, Dean, he's just successful, right? He has, this great life, and he has a successful business, but he's like, this is scary for me. And it's scary for me and my wife. And today we're flying out to go help my kids with their allergies. And I wrote him an email after, and I just said, Dean, thank you so much for doing that. I said, you have no idea what everyone listening to you got from that, because here they are looking to you as their leader, right? And their mentor, and that you let them understand that you're going through things too. And it's just, we're starving for it, which is why when someone like a Dean Graziosi opens up in that way, people are like, oh, wow, right? Like, it's like eyes are open, the mask is off. And in the book, I talk about this idea of what I call keyboard confidence. And keyboard confidence, which is that raw, unfiltered confidence that only happens when behind a screen and typing on your keyboard. And I'm sure you get it, right? You may go on Facebook and you see a post from a friend of yours and you think to yourself, who wrote that? And what have they done with my friend? Because they would never have the confidence to say that in person. That is keyboard confidence. And it's so dangerous because what it does is it splits you, meaning you're one person on social media and through your emails and texts, and then you're another person face to face. Well, for me, in order to become what I call a master communicator, you must be that same person no matter where you are and what you're doing. And what happens is we live in this society where it's easy to use the screens of our devices as masks. But I love the reference of The Wizard of Oz, where Dorothy and her friends venture to the land of Oz to meet the great and powerful wizard. And when they get there, they meet him for the first time and they're shaking in their boots because they see this big face and smoke and this deep voice. And they're like, oh my goodness, he's so intimidating. Until Toto pulls back the curtain to reveal the real wizard, and Dorothy refers to him as an insecure humbug. And out walks this man of a very small stature, meek, shy, the opposite of this persona they just saw. Yet, the only way he was able to help Dorothy and her friends was when he did it when that mask was removed and he was his authentic self. The same is true for us. We can never connect with another person in a real way or help another person in a real way unless we remove the masks of our devices and we step into the fullness of who we are, whether that's in person, through an email, a text, or a Zoom. And I just think, again, that's very much what my purpose is with my book and with speaking now, and what I'm doing is like to help us get back to that authentic communication, because it's a priority in our lives if we want to be the limitless beings that we can be.
First of all, I'm like, side note, I have to just say, I was like, oh my God, you could totally play Dorothy whenever The Wizard of Oz comes out in the musical. I was like, Julie, get back to the interview. I have like chills on my head. I was like, she could totally be Dorothy. I need to say that. You're so Dorothy. Yeah. Hello. I'm like, okay, so side note, we'll put that in another little bucket.
Yeah.
No, what you're saying, this is actually, I want to bring something else up that I'm hearing under this as well. And that, I think, Renee, is being really careful. Number one, of the split persona, that keyword confidence. I love the way you said that and that idea. And the other piece is, not only does it split us, I really believe, being energy, it can wreak havoc in your body, in your health, and the way you see yourself. But the other side of this is being very careful. And I think we talked about this. I've just had this lesson myself. Do not needing to put people on pedestals. Because that guy, that little dude, and the Oz guy, he was on a pedestal. He was literally on a pedestal, on like a stepping stool, whatever, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
And so we have to be mindful. That's the whole point with, I think, with what you're really saying, being masterful at communicating, is It's at the heart level. It's genuine. This is not about, and I would imagine you even working with Clint Eastwood, like he's a human being. He's not
Yes.
perfect. He's super wise. I mean, let's be honest, that's an amazing opportunity. And it's like, and Dean Graziosi, all these people we're all, as Ramdas said, we're all walking each other home, right? That's what we're doing.
Yes.
So I'd love to just hear your thoughts, because I know that's been something I've had a really, really, I've been healing myself, not doing that with other people. It's really important.
It is. And just like you, this is something I've just recently learned because I'm someone I've always been this way. And especially as a performer, right? In this very tough industry where it can feel like the only way to win is to compete.
Yeah.
I believe I was successful because I was never in that mindset. I was always about like collaborating and connecting, not competing. So like I was the girl in the audition room of 500 girls who looked just like me, and I was standing on the sidelines not being like, "Ugh, she's not that good." Like I was like, amazing, yes, woo, like cheering for each other, knowing that this is a hard freaking experience we're having right now, dancing in front of each other, auditioning, the pressure's on. We need to make each other feel calm and at ease. And through that, because I am a very genuine person, I mean, if you meet me here on this video, I'm going to be the same person you meet in my neighborhood, or if you meet me at an event, like there is no different, like, oh, Renee puts it on. Like, of course, different facets to our personality, right? When I'm home lounging with my husband, but I'm the same me no matter where I go. But also with that, my whole life, I realized I do naturally put people on a pedestal because I'm such like a celebrator of other people that I'll be like, oh my God, she's so amazing. Like admiring, constantly admiring other people, which is a beautiful quality because I really do. But my mother always helped me to recognize this, where she'd be like, Renee, you're admiring that person so much, but like, do you not see that in yourself? And quite honestly, I didn't. There are many times I don't because I'm so putting other people on pedestals that, not realizing it, I'm putting myself below that person. And the truth is, nobody's on a pedestal, right? We're all human beings, souls having a human experience, right? We all are in a different journey. We're all here to learn different lessons. So that looks different from the outside. But at the end of the day, it's an even playing field. And even though my whole life I thought that I was doing good, like, no, but I'm like putting that person up there thinking I was doing something great, which that was from my heart. At the same time, what I was doing is detracting from myself, which is not fair, right? So I'm just now learning this as well. And, being in this space where I get to speak on stages with such incredible people, people that I admire, right? I just was at Madison Square Garden and I spoke with A-Rod and Martha Stewart and like these huge people, right? I have to constantly remind myself, Renee, you're all people, right? Like, yes, they are maybe bazillionaires and you're not there yet, right? But that doesn't mean anything. Like, we're all still souls having a human experience. So, although it's beautiful to appreciate other people and their qualities and their gifts, I think a great practice we can start to do is realize that if you're appreciating that in others, that means that it's also a reflection of you. And that I think is really helpful for those of us who are used to perfectionism and kind of used to beating ourselves up. It's a great practice to start to say, well, if I could see that in them, what else, what can I find great in myself?
Oh gosh, I love where this. I'm like, this is one of my favorite conversations ever. I've been doing this almost 7 years, and I'm like, I am buzzing. That's how I know my energy is like ready to rocket to the moon. How about you? Who was watching? You've got to be. We've got. I mean, we're in a high vibration, friends. Like
High
we
five.
high vibe. One thing you said, it's so cool. There's so much wisdom in everything you're saying, and it's interesting. What I just got, Renee, as you were talking, is this idea of being a masterful communicator. It's both. It's outward with others, and then it's inward. It's how am I communicating with myself? And when I see somebody else doing something fantastic, appreciating inspiration, and then also remembering there's an ounce of something there or more that's in me. The idea like if you spot it, you've got it, right? I've heard that before.
Yes.
So
And the first step of what I teach, Julie, so I have a 7-step connect method. And the first step is communication with self. Like
yeah,
for all of you listening, I want you to really hear this and hear this well. The communication you have with yourself, the way you speak to yourself, the awareness you have, that sets the foundation, the framework for all of your external communication, right? So you must show yourself that respect first, that love, that appreciation, because when you do, then think about how much you open yourself to appreciate others. And again, I'm saying this to you because I have to say this to myself, right? And I have to constantly remind myself of this. When we make mistakes, as we will, like give yourself the grace and the space to say, that's okay. This is just my lesson to know better for the next time, to learn, to grow, and to just keep honoring yourself. Because that's something for so many years, you guys, that I didn't do. Like when I tell you, I developed a pattern from a little girl, you guys, from like 5 years old, beating myself up and believing that's the only way to get better. That's what I deserve. How dare you, Renee? Right? Using, I like in thinking of it now, I'm like, gosh, why did I do that to myself? Renee, you're so stupid. And I'll tell you guys, one of what my primary question was most of my life up until now, I'm about to be 42. Yes, I'm proud to say it. Like, probably up until 40, the question, the most common question I would ask myself is, Renee, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you, Renee? Like, how shitty, you guys. And I'm sure many of you listening, it's not much different. Renee, what is wrong with you? And thank God I have a beautiful support system. My husband, my mother, my father, my friends, my chosen family who would be like, Renee, are you kidding me? Like, do you not realize what a good person you are, or all that you've accomplished, or all that you are? And I'd be like, no, I don't. I see it in others, right? And I thought that was separate. Like I saw it in others, but I didn't see it in me. But just like I want you to understand, when I was seeing it in others, the missing link to that was that meant it was within me too. And now I have the self awareness to know that when I look at Julie and like my heart melts because she's such a beautiful soul. And like, not only is she beautiful externally, but like her soul, her spirit is so beautiful. I appreciate it so much. Now I have the awareness to know that that means I too have that. Right. Like, and that's something I want you all to really hold on to and utilize for yourselves, because if we can start to practice that, think about, oh my God, what a beautiful world this will be if we can love and appreciate ourselves more. That just means we love and appreciate others more, so we appreciate the differences, and then we start uniting instead of dividing, and then we don't have this crazy ass division that we see in the world right now.
amen, sister.
Amen.
Oh,
Amen.
amen. Do you want to sing something with amen before we end?
And I'm like, what is amen in it? I'm like, oh my God. I just like, but yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
it just like lights me up saying that. Like, because I really like the energy
Yeah.
within me. And I was like, yes, yes, yes. We all need to hear this. We need to hear this because it's so much simpler than we make it. And all we do is look outside of ourselves and we think that that's the answer, and the newest technology and newest application and AI. You guys, the one thing that AI can never replace is human connection and the human heart. So sometimes let's put the damn devices aside, take a moment to connect with ourselves. When we wake up in the morning, instead of rolling over to your nightstand to grab your smartphone, instead, leave your phone aside and ask yourself this one question: how am I feeling? And then
Mm.
take 5 to 10 minutes, put pen to paper, and write the answer. That's it. Like one of the most beautiful ways to start your day, to get you in connection with yourself. So then when you open up the bedroom door and your kids are calling your name and your husband and your wife and you're at work and you're connecting with your team members, you're doing so from a more aligned place.
Yes, yes, yes. Oh, yes. My goodness, we'll definitely have to do this again. My brain is like 5,000 more questions and thoughts and So good. It is really important though, this aspect of feeling. I could tell you it's taken me years to really know what I feel. Years, and to honor it. I mean, just there's so much more to unpack there. But that is so, I love this action item. Ask yourself, how am I feeling? And
Yeah.
allow it and to be with it. And that, you are living and walking your talk and your communication. You really are, Renee. Like, I so honor you, love you, acknowledge you, love, like, this wisdom is needed. I personally need to hear this daily. That's why I reach out a lot. That's what we all need to be reminded of this. So my last question, what I usually ask is there anything, I call them heart flares here. We call them heart flares where your
Mm.
heart's like, I have one last thing to say. It's something either maybe I didn't ask you, or it's just kind of there intuitively, or that you would like to share that you're feeling has not been said yet?
Hmm. I just want to reiterate again that it's so important for you to disconnect to reconnect. Disconnect from your phone, disconnect from the TV, disconnect from social media, disconnect to reconnect to yourself. That way, when you go to utilize these tools, instead of utilizing them as a means of distracting you from what's really going on within, you utilize them as the tools for your growth as they were intended to be used.
Boom. Beautiful. So beautiful.
Thank you, Julie. This has been such a gift. I just thank you for this platform. Thank you for all that you're doing, and I'm just so grateful. Thank you, Ashley, for bringing Julie and I together, and I honor you. You're such a beautiful spirit, and I'm so grateful that you are now part of my chosen family.
Oh my goodness. Renee, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. My heart is so full. And I'm just going to say, on behalf of both of our hearts, we're going to thank all of you listening wherever you are around the globe. And may you really, really, really listen with your heart and get that you have everything you need, and anything you heard said today that really inspired you is in you too, because you wouldn't have recognized it. And Renee, you said that. And love you, my sister.
Love
And
you. Mwah.
mwah. And we send love to everyone. Thank you. Thank you for being here on the journey of being and becoming your You-est you. Mwah. Hey, my love, it's Julie. I just wanted to pop in here really quickly to share something very exciting for you. Being a part of this beautiful You-est You podcast family, I wanted to share a special that I have going right now. I am opening the doors now to my intuition school. This is going to help you to really learn how to use your intuition as your inner GPS. Your intuition is literally your superpower. It has healed and changed my life, and I want to help you to do the same. Go to juliereisler.com/intuition school and use the code podcast97 to get $97 off of tuition. So here's the thing. There are 9 modules. I'm going to teach it to you live every week. You have everything recorded. We're going to dive deep. All things woo, wisdom of oneness, as you know, learning how to muscle test, learning how to connect with your spirit guides, your higher self, learning how to assess your energy system and your chakras, and so, so much more. Go check it out at juliereisler.com/intuition school. And if your soul is feeling a calling, a nudge to do this, be sure to use the special code podcast97. I would love to have you there. I'd be honored to be part of your journey in activating your most powerful asset, your intuition. Sending love always. I hope to see you there.